Hello and welcome back to UCL Review, where we round up the biggest results and talking points from the best sporting competition in the world. You know the drill by now. I'm joined by Henry Hill. He watched the Real Madrid game. I watched the Man City game. Two brilliant games. Fantastic storylines to get stuck into this evening. Henry, we're kicking off with Real Madrid versus Atalanta. What went down?
Oh, you know what? I chose this game because I thought Atalanta were going to spring a big surprise on Real Madrid, but it wasn't to be at all. Real Madrid, they progressed into the quarterfinals for the first time in 3 years after comfortably beating Atalanta 3-1 at home. Goals coming from Benzema, Ramos, Asensio, and then a Muriel free kick to reply, which I'll get onto in a bit later. But I mean, I think it's kind of what we've been talking about all year on Continental Club across the platforms. It was just a really professional, solid display from Real Madrid. I mean, and they've looked shaky in Europe as well. I mean, they lost to Shakhtar twice in the group. They struggled to break down 10-man Atalanta in the first leg. And you did think after that, there's definitely a chance for Atalanta to take it. But, you know, in the league, they've actually been pretty decent recently. They've only failed to win 5 of their last 16 games, drawing 4 and losing 1. And they are third in the table, only 6 points behind Atletico Madrid. But you looked at their team sheet, which Zidane put out, and you did think this could be slightly troublesome for them. They went for a 3 at the back, with Nacho in there as well, and then Vázquez and Mondi on the wing-back roles. So I did think, you know, they're kind of preparing for the Atalanta famous onslaught, as it were. And sure enough, like in the first 15 minutes, it was all Atalanta. Robin Gosens really should have scored, sort of right in front of Courtois, just couldn't really get a decent connection on it from across. But after that, Real Madrid just really worked themselves back into the game. They looked so dangerous on the break. There was so much space between the Atalanta midfield and their defence as well. It was whoever scored the first goal was going to be crucial in this game to really set the tempo. Obviously 1-0 going into the game for Real Madrid. And Marco Sportiello, what a big mistake. He played back to him. He's just booted it straight to Modric, who squared it to Benzema. First time finish. That's his 5th in the competition this season. It was never ever going to miss from there. But it was such a bad mistake, and you kind of felt the wind completely fall out of the sails for the Italian side from then on in. And it kind of it left them really open because they had to push for it. And it became the perfect game for Vinicius, who almost scored a worldie in the second half.
What a dribble.
Fluffed his lines 1-on-1 and almost scored in the first half as well. It was another good block from the Atalanta defence. But really, it opened up and it was his perfect kind of game. And also, it meant that the wing-backs really got into it as well and just caught them on the back foot. And, you know, it was Vinicius that really, it was his work that led to the penalty in the second half. A dribble through, and he was tripped on the edge of the area by Rafael Toloi. It was an interesting one because Toloi's foot was, the first contact was outside the area, but then his second foot, which he flicked out almost stupidly, was inside the area. So they decided to give it for that. I think if he hadn't committed with his second foot as well, then he might have got away with it. But anyway, Ramos made no mistake from the box as well. After that, I mean, they did bring on Ilicic and Zapata. That seemed to wake them up a bit. I was surprised they didn't actually start. And, you know, Courtois drawn into a save from Zapata. But Benzema also hit the post before Muriel scored a really excellent free kick, actually. One of their real moment of class in the game because they didn't really test the keeper at all. But if you watch it back, they're sort of they shielded the Muriel with 3 players who ran forward and broke away. Then it was just an amazing finish over the wall, actually. But, I mean, it was kind of typical of Atalanta. No sooner had they scored, then Real Madrid broke down the other end. And Asensio, I'm pretty sure, scored with his first touch from a Vázquez dribble, who Vázquez was excellent again, really. I think this is kind of the key, is that all of Real Madrid's big players stepped up and just managed the game excellently. I mean, it was a consummate display from Real Madrid, and I feel silly for ever writing them off. And, you know, and this was a huge, really important result for them after their struggles of the previous 2 years, where they're beaten 5-3 by Ajax in the last 16 in 18-19 and 4-2 by Manchester City at the same stage last year. No shame in that whatsoever. But yeah, for Atalanta, I remember this time last year we were so kind of sad when they lost to PSG in that really dramatic night in Portugal. But I mean, this occasion they went out with a proper whimper, and yeah, I don't want to say I didn't see this coming, but I just hope for so much more from them.
Yeah, I think that team selection really it's not really very like Gasperini to not really go for it and go for the juggler, because this is a Real Madrid side who have been, very good results-wise in La Liga, but even at the weekend had to come back from 1-0 down against Elche. It felt like they were there for the taking, with that team selection maybe a little too negative from Gasperini. And he had no real reason to as well, because they'd only lost 7 of their 38 games in all competitions going into this, progressing through to the Coppa Italia final as well. And their Champions League form, it's been mixed. Their away form's actually been very good, but at home, it's been pretty dodgy. 2-2 draw with Ajax, 5-0 loss to Liverpool, a 1-1 draw with Midtjylland, and obviously that 1-0 loss to Real Madrid in that first leg, which felt crucial. Although having stayed in the game for so long with 10 men, I think it was about 75 minutes, you felt, can they go to the Bernabeu or the Real Madrid training ground and really put them under some pressure in this game? And it didn't quite materialise. At least things, for a positive, are going okay for them in the league. They've only lost 2 of their last 16 games, and they've won 5 of their last 6, scoring 15 goals in that time. This form has moved them up to 4th, just 2 points ahead of Napoli in 5th, who have a game in hand, and 3 behind Juve, who also have a game in hand. So it's really hotting up for that 4th spot in Italy. Sadly, in this game, their midfield was really no match for Madrid's at all, who controlled the game exceptionally well. Though Matteo Pessina did cope better, Martin de Roon was really poor. Martin de Roon, I should say, won only 1 of his 10 grand duels, lost possession 12 times, and was dribbled past 4 times, completing 3 fouls. So we left Christian Romero, Jim City, and Toloi very exposed to breaks, which the fullbacks and Vinicius managed to exploit particularly well. The young Brazilian Vinicius, that was, completed 4 out of his 5 dribbles and won that all-important penalty, as Henry mentioned. Luka Modric, absolutely superb. He's been absolutely awesome since about the turn of the year, really. 91% pass accuracy, 8 tackles and interceptions, 2 long balls and a key pass. Excellent game management. Who better to control a game like this at this stage of the competition than Luka Modric? What a little legend. It meant that while Atalanta had 5 shots on target, only the goal really tested Courtois. Benzema was also brilliant, as he has been, as he was against Elche at the weekend as well. 5 out of 7 grand duels won. He completed 3 out of his 3 long balls, 4 out of 4 successful dribbles, nearly a 90% pass accuracy, which for a striker is actually insane, and a goal, and his link-up play, as always, was on point. Up next, Atalanta travel to Hellas Verona on Sunday. Real Madrid take on 10th place Celta Vigo on the same day. But I suppose the question from this game, Henry, now Real Madrid have gone through, can you see them springing a surprise this year?
I don't think people want to play them if we consider that Dortmund went through last week. And Porto as well. I think Madrid is still a team that people will want to avoid over 2 legs, because when they go into that kind of professional shutdown mode, they know exactly what to do. This is the competition. They've still got pedigree, and Zidane will. I mean, they're still obviously in La Liga. There's still definitely a chance there. But I think Zidane, as long as they avoid like a really big boy, I think they've got a good chance of going one step further.
There we have it, guys. Do you guys agree with Henry? Do Real Madrid have an outside chance for the Champions League? They're 14th this year. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And let's move on to our second game.
So the other game tonight was Manchester City versus Borussia Monchengladbach. And let's face it, the Germans had a bit of a mountain to climb, considering everything going on at the club, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And that mountain turned out to be absolute Mount Kilimanjaro after about 20 minutes. They were 2-0 down already. Man City cruised to a 2-0 win, which put them through on aggregate very comfortably 4-0. Now they're 14 points clear at the top of the Premier League. This is Man City. Into the Carabao Cup final, and they've got that FA Cup quarter-final against Everton on Saturday. So there is a chance, albeit slightly remote, that Man City could do the quadruple this year. And I think they're in the top. They're in the top 2 sides of the Champions League for sure. I think it's going to be really difficult. The commentators were talking about what's going on in their April. They've got the FA Cup quarter semi-final, should they make it. They've got the Carabao Cup final. They've got the Champions League quarter-finals. And they've got something like 4 league games as well. So it's a congested month. But if they can get through April in all 4 competitions, wow, they've got a great chance. But in terms of this game, the big team news was that Pep went with the front 3 of Foden, KDB and Mahrez, who all linked up spectacularly well. Sterling, Aguero and Gabby Jesus were on the bench, while Marco Rose left their Champions League top scorer Alisson Player on the bench. A bit like Gasperini leaving Zapata on the bench, left the major firepower in Player on the bench and went with Thuram, Embolo and Stindl, who were pretty effectively nullified. And it didn't take long for City to score their first. After 12 minutes, Kevin De Bruyne scored an absolute golazzo into the top left-hand corner for his 3rd goal in 2 games, and his first Champions League goal of the season, interestingly. He did have 4 assists in his 2 previous Champions League outings this term, so he hasn't really been letting down the side, but his form has really picked up after that injury issue. 6 minutes later, they had their second. Foden turned and ran 30 minutes. 30 minutes? 30 metres. 30 minutes would be a long, long run. 30 metres before slipping in Gundogan, who scored his 15th goal in 33 games this season. Isn't that just a ridiculous record? He's now City's top scorer and the top scoring German in the whole of Europe. So bodes well for the Euros this year, but they'll need more from their front man like Timo Werner if they're wanting to win that competition and put to bed the woes of the 2018 World Cup. In the second half, there wasn't much to report. I mean, it was so comfortable for Pep that he was able to bring off Cancelo, Rodri, Gundogan and Diaz in the second half, as you'd expect with all that crazy schedule going on next month. And he brought on Zinchenko, Fernandinho, Sterling and Laporte. I mean, what incredible squad depth. I feel like that is the key reason behind why City are favourites to win every competition they're in this year, along with Bayern Munich for the Champions League probably. They absolutely dismantle teams mentally and physically. They make you work so hard to regain the ball, and when you do, you're 70 metres away from your own goal, and Gladbach just couldn't build any sort of concerted pressure on that City goal. And it continues City's brilliant record. Since losing 3 consecutive home games in the competition between March and September 2018, City have won 11 of their last 12 matches at the Etihad, whilst averaging 3.5 goals per game. Just a quite ridiculous record. But, thinking of ridiculous records, get this. They've now scored over 100 goals for the 8th consecutive season. Wow. Only Man United with 9 between 2004-05 and 2012-13, basically the last 9 years of Fergie, have done so for a longer occasion. It's the 12th time that a Pep Guardiola side has managed to do so as well. So just a quite ridiculous record. But yeah, Henry, as you mentioned at the top of this section, it was always going to be so difficult for Gladbach.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty disastrous ever since Marco Rose, it was revealed that he's going to Borussia Dortmund. They've lost their last 6 games, and the manager admitted it would take something extraordinary to get anything out of this tie here at the Etihad. And their disastrous form has seen them tumble to 10th in the table, 12 points above 19th place Mainz, and 11 behind 4th place Eintracht Frankfurt. So it doesn't look like there's going to be any European football next year. A bit of a hot take, but if Marco Rose is going and they're doing so badly, if they know who they want to bring in, I think it'd almost be in their interest to try and accelerate that process, maybe, because clearly they're just in a rut now and the manager's head isn't necessarily in the fight, as it were, and the team aren't really responding. But to be fair, this is a rotten draw at all. They've faced Man City a number of times over the year. They joke about it on Twitter, how hard this is going to be, and their record in England is very poor. They had never previously won away to English opposition in the European Cup, drawn 1, lost 3. Well, they've conceded 8 goals in their last 2 trips, both against City. So like I said, it was always going to be difficult. And they really struggled as expected. They only had 33% of possession and only had 6 shots with 3 on target compared to 10 for City, who had 6 on target there. XG had it at 1.4 to 0.2. Credit to Manchester City, John Stones was excellent at the back. 3 tackles, 1 aerial duel win, a dribble, and 97% pass accuracy. Clearly just absolutely loving the ball at his feet at the moment. But another player who's just looked world class this season once again, Riyad Mahrez. He was excellent. 3 tackles, 3 dribbles, 2 key passes, 5 shots and that assist, and should have scored at least 1. His finishing left a little bit to be desired in this game at least. But I mean, those stats, he's sort of doing everything defensive and offensive that you want from him at the moment, so fully deserving of his place in that side. And then of course Phil Foden, he's now been involved in 20 goals in all competitions this season, 12 goals, 8 assists, 8 more than the next under 21 player for a Premier League club, being Bukayo Saka. He is looking exceptional, isn't he? It looks like Man City have played that perfectly in terms of his career progression, and trust in Pep quite clearly is the answer to that question there. City have now gone over 11 hours since they conceded in the competition, the second longest run in the history of the competition. Bear in mind, they still haven't even won it yet. Up next for them, City have that FA Cup tie at Goodison on Saturday, and then 13 days between their next game at Leicester City, so a well-earned break for them there. While Gladbach travel to Schalke on Saturday, who have won 1 game all season, so if they needed a pick-me-up, perhaps that could be the one to get it there. But I mean, if you look at City's squads, the depth is there. The injuries they've been quite fortunate about. Obviously, Aguero's kind of missing in parts this season. But at times they haven't even played 2 strikers, have they? I think they started about 2 of their strikers today. I mean, in terms of going all the way to do that quadruple, they've certainly got the personnel and the ability to switch players to make that happen, don't they?
Yeah, I think Pep's rotated really effectively this year. I mean, when you've got someone like Aymeric Laporte, who looks like the second best defender in the Premier League prior to this season, to be honest, behind Virgil van Dijk, as not even on your first choice 11, it's quite ridiculous. Sterling's been on the bench for the last couple of games. Riyad Mahrez has really come to the fore. Gundogan went through that incredible scoring patch and got another goal tonight. Foden has just developed into probably one of the most exciting young players in Europe this season. So everything is working out for Man City. They are managing games exceptionally well. They're controlling the opposition so well, keeping the ball away from their own goal. And Ederson is just absolutely waltzing through games. And I really wouldn't be surprised if they went on to win the quadruple. I think over 2 legs, if they avoid... over 2 legs, I don't think anyone would beat them. I think Bayern Munich in a one-off game could really cause them some damage. But otherwise, I just can't see who's going to beat them. But then I have thought that in previous years, and they lost to Liverpool, Spurs, then Lyon. So it's definitely not impossible to beat them. But guys, that's all we've got time for on UCL Review for this week. What did you guys think of the show? I'll be back tomorrow covering... What's the games tomorrow? Chelsea, Atletico Madrid, and Lazio Bayern Munich with Michael McCubbin. But in the meantime, Henry, what should they go and watch now?
Oh, if you haven't, go check out ERU because we've got that really tasty story about Ronaldo, whether or not he'll go back to Real Madrid. So who knows what position he'll find Real Madrid when he returns to them potentially next year. And also we've got a good scout report on Haaland and looking at his future as well. So 2 big strikers with big futures still, I would say, about Ronaldo. So yeah, go check those out.
Perfect. Thanks very much for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time. Bye.